We'll be reading Chapter 7, Section 3, Formation of Soil. Soil is an important natural resource because it is essential to life on Earth. It would be difficult to imagine a world without soil. Humans and other organisms are dependent on plants which grow in soil for food and other basic needs. If you were to make a list of all the things that humans obtain directly and indirectly from soil, you might be surprised by the number of items on your list. In addition to wood from trees, such things as oxygen from plants, food from plants, and meat from animals are all dependent on plants and are all products of soil. Soil can helps to filter pollutants. Development of soil. Except for some steep mountain slopes and extremely cold regions, soil is found almost everywhere on Earth's surface. But what is soil? Weathered rock alone is not soil. Soil is the loose covering of broken rock particles and decaying organic matter called humus overlying the bedrock of Earth's surface. Soil is the result of chemical and mechanical weathering and biological activity over long periods of time. The soil forming process begins when weathering breaks solid bedrock into smaller pieces. These pieces of rock continue to undergo weathering and break down into smaller and smaller pieces. Many organisms, such as bacteria, fungi, and insects, begin to live in these weathered materials. Over time, the organisms die, decay, and add nutrients to the weathered materials to form soil, which in turn supports a variety of life forms as shown in Figure 7.19. The process of continual breakdown of organic materials is thus begun. Nutrients continue to be added to the soil texture improves, and the soil's capacity to hold water increases. While all the soils contain some organic matter in various states of decay, the amount of such matter varies wildly among different types of soil. For example, forest soils contain a much higher percentage of organic matter than desert soils do. Soil composition. During the process of its development, soil forms in layers. The solid bedrock from which weathered pieces of rock first break off is known as the parent rock. As these pieces of weathered bedrock break off, they rest on top of the parent rock layer. The pieces of rock continue to weather, and the smaller pieces form a layer that rests on top of the larger pieces. Thus, the smallest piece of weathered rock, along with living and dead organisms, remain in the very top layer. Rainwater seeps through this top layer of materials, dissolves soluble minerals, and carries them into the lower layers of the soil. Soil located above its parent material is called residual soil. Kentucky's bluegrass soil is an example of residual soil, as are all the red soils in Georgia, shown in Figure 7.20. In contrast, transported soil has been moved to a location away from its parent bedrock. Agents of erosion, such as running water, wind, and glaciers, may transport soil from its place of origin to new locations. For example, glaciers have transported sediments to form soil from other places to the northern regions of the United States. Streams and rivers, especially during times of flooding, also transport and deposit great amounts of soil on floodplains along their banks of downstream locations. Winds carry and deposit very fine material to new locations as well. While the parent bedrock determines what kinds of materials a soil contains, the proportion of minerals in a soil and in the parent bedrock may not be the same. Differences may occur as a result of chemical weathering. The length of time it takes for soil to form also depends on the type of parent rock, as well as the climate conditions of an area. In general, however, the process of soil formation occurs over a very long period of time. It can take hundreds of years for only a centimeter of soil to form. Soil profiles. Digging a deep hole in the ground will expose a soil profile, as when heavy machinery digs out soil in the process of building roads or highways. A soil profile is the vertical sequence of soil layers as illustrated in Figure 7.21a. Some soils have more distinct layers than others. For example, poorly developed soils will show little distinction between layers. A distinction layer or zone within a soil profile is called a soil horizon. There are three major soil horizons, A, B, and C. High concentrations of organic matter and humans are found in A horizons, which soils rich in humus are usually dark colored. They range from gray or black. Figure 7.21b shows black soils. Horizons B and C, the layers under Horizon A, are less developed soil. Horizon B contains subsoils that are enriched with clay materials. Many subsoils have a zone of accumulation consisting of soluble minerals that have been leached or washed out from the topsoil. Some soils may be red or brown in color as a result of the presence of iron oxides. Accumulations of clay in the B horizon can cause the formation of a hard material, commonly called hardpan, which may be so dense that it allows little or no water to pass through it. Horizon C, below horizon B and directly above solid bedrock, contains weathered parent material. Horizons A, B, and C are distinct as well as developed in mature soils. However, all horizons may not be present in a given soil. Topography. The topography of a region affects the thickness of developing soil. In sloped areas where runoff readily occurs, the coarser particles of soil remain on the slopes, while the smaller particles move downslope. As a result, soils on slopes tend to be thin, coarse, and infertile, whereas soils formed in lower areas, such as in valleys, are thick and fertile. Because south-facing slopes receive the most direct sunlight, they have somewhat more vegetation and therefore thicker soils than slopes facing in other directions. The development of mature soil with distinct horizons takes a very long time. Only over time can vegetation grow and mature in a soil and increase the rate of soil development. Vegetation contributes to the buildup of humus and supplies acids that further promote the weathering process. Soil types. A soil's appearance, rate of formation, and productivity are determined to a great extent by climate. Because soils form from different parent bedrock material and undergo different climate conditions, soils vary greatly from one place to another. Other factors contribute to the development of soil, including the types of plants and animals living in the soil, the topography of the area, and the length of time that the soil has been forming. However, because climate conditions are the main influence of soil development, soils are often classified based on the climates in which they form. The four major types of soil are polar, temperate, desert, and tropical. Figure 722 shows a map of major soil types. Polar soils. Polar soils from high latitudes and high elevations in places such as Greenland, Canada, and Antarctica. These soils have good drainage but no distinct horizons because they are very shallow, sometimes only a few centimeters deep. Permanently frozen ground, called permafrost, is often present under the thin polar soils. Temperate soils. Temperate soils vary greatly and are able to support such diverse environments as forests, grasslands, and prairies. While the temperature zone in general experiences annual rainfall greater than 50 to 60 centimeters, the specific amount of rainfall in an area determines the type of vegetation that will grow in temperate soils. Grasslands, which have an abundance of humus, are characterized by rich, fertile soils, whereas forest soils are characterized by less deep and less fertile soils that contain aluminum-rich clays and iron oxides, such as those commonly found in the eastern portion of the United States. Soils in the drier, temperate prairies of the western United States support the growth of grasses and bushes. These areas experience annual rainfall of less than 50 to 60 centimeters. Desert soils. Desert soils receive low levels of precipitation, less than 25 centimeters per year. As a result, desert soils often have a high level of accumulated salt and can support only a limited amount of vegetation. Desert soils have little to or no organic matter and a very thin A horizon. However, deserts often have abundant nutrients. During periods of precipitation, deserts are able to support many plants that are adapted to survival during long periods of drought. Desert soils are also light-colored, coarse, and may contain salts and gypsum. Tropical soils. Tropical areas experience high temperatures and heavy rainfall. These conditions lead to the development of intensely weathered and often infertile soil, such as that shown in Figure 723. The intense weathering, combined with a high degree of bacterial activity, leave tropical soils with very little humus and very few nutrients. These soils experience such leaching of soluble materials such as cellulite and silica, but they have high concentrations of iron and aluminum. The characteristic red color of tropical soils is the result of the oxidation of iron. While these soils provide poor growth conditions, high-grade iron is mined from Brazilian, Australian, and Jamaican tropical soils. Soil textures. Particles of soil are classified according to the size of being clay, silt, or sand, with clay being the smallest and sand being the largest, as shown in Table 7.2. The relative proportions of these particle sizes determine a soil's texture. As you will discover in the problem-solving lab on this page, the proportions of different sized particles present in a soil sample can be determined by first placing the sample along the water in a clear jar, shaking the jar and allowing the particles to settle. With ample water, sediments will sort out as they settle, and the percentage of settled clay, silt, and sand can be estimated. This information, along with a soil textural triangle shown in Figure 724, is used to determine a soil's texture. The texture of a soil affects its capacity to retain moisture and therefore its ability to support plant growth. Soil infertility. Soil fertility. Soil fertility is the measure of how well a soil can support the growth of plants. Factors that affect soil fertility include the availability of minerals and nutrients, the number of microorganisms present, the amount of precipitation available, topography, and the level of acidity. Conditions necessary for growth vary with plant species. Farmers use natural and commercially produced fertilizers to replace minerals and maintain soil fertility. Commercial fertilizers add nitrate, potassium, and phosphorus to soil. The planting of legumes such as peas, beans, and clover allow bacteria to grow on plant roots and replace nitrates in the soil. Pulverized limestone is often added to soil to reduce acidity and enhance crop growth. The addition of compost, organic mulch, and peat moss to soil also helps to maintain its fertility. Soil color. A soil's composition and the climate in which it develops are the main factors that determine a soil's color. Topsoil is usually dark colored because it is rich in humus. However, color alone is unreliable and as an indicator of soil fertility. Red and yellow soils may be the result of oxidation of iron minerals. However, yellow soils are usually poorly drained and are often associated with environmental problems. Grayish or bluish soils are common in poorly drained regions where soils are constantly wet and lack oxygen.